Hello, my name is Berenice Salazar, and today I will be speaking about freedom and privation of religion. To begin with the introduction, I will be discussing a few topics. Within these topics are definition, history, laws, present issues, cases, and we will finish with the resources. I will share my resources that I use to find the information. Let's begin. Definition. I have two definitions for freedom of religion. The first, the right, especially as guaranteed under the Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to practice one's religion or exercise one's belief without intervention by the government. The second definition, the right of people to hold any religious beliefs or none, and to carry out any practices in accordance with those beliefs or with that absence of belief, so long as these practices do not interfere with other people's legal or civil rights or any reasonable laws without fear or harm or persecution. So what these definitions are stating is that people have the right to choose a religion. They are free to practice any religion they would like, so long as they don't affect others, as they don't break any laws or they don't commit any illegal acts. The next definition is of privation. The testing or trial of a person's conduct, character, qualifications, or the like. The testing or trial of a candidate for membership in a religious body or order for holy order. Religion. A set of beliefs concerning the cause, nature, and purpose of the universe, especially when considered as a creation of a superhuman agency or agencies, usually involving devotional and ritual observances, and often containing a moral code governing the conduct of human affairs. So as of today, there are approximately, what's an estimation, that there are about 4,200 religions in the world. Continuing with the history. Religion has been an issue since ancient times as stated below, and I have a few examples here. The first example is about Socrates. This occurred in 399 BC. So Socrates was a Greek philosopher that taught young students, and when he was teaching, he was accused and he was tried for supposedly corrupting the young and teaching them about other gods. But in reality, Socrates was just trying to expand his students' knowledge, because back then, the Athenians, they would focus mainly on wealth, and he wanted his students to know more than just wealth. He wanted them to use their minds and to expand in their knowledge. So because of this, he was found guilty and was sentenced to death. He was put to death by drinking a mixture of poison hemlock. So this shows how a government can influence people, and how in Greece, the punishment for trying to choose your religion or your choice of religion was put to death, which was very strict back then. The second example, which is communism in China, occurred in 1949. China wanted to remove religion completely and enforce communism. They believed religion was the opiate of the masses, and the religions and other beliefs were forbidden. So before 1949, they had a couple of choices to be in a religion. They didn't have massive choices, but there were certain religions that were okay with the government. It wasn't until 1949, when communism entered, that they wanted to wipe out religion completely so that communism could take over in China. However, even though they tried, they couldn't, because until today, there's still 5 religions that are practiced mainly in China. Some of them were actually wiped away, but there's still 5 remaining. The third example is the Jewish Holocaust that happened in 1939 to 1945. Jews were discriminated by the Nazi and couldn't enter certain stores. This happened at the beginning. Then after, jobs and valuable belongings were taken away by Germans. In the end, the Jews were forced to wear a yellow star and move into concentration camps where harsh labor was forced upon them, and many were killed by masses. So as we see here, this is not only discriminating the Jews as their culture and background, but it's also discriminating their religion, because Judaism is basically part of them and it's part of what they practice and their culture. So in the next example, which is example 4, that was about the Pilgrims, and this happened in the year 1620. The Pilgrims were a group of English people known as separatists. They fled England in order to be able to worship fully in America. Their homes were raided and people were being imprisoned for their beliefs in their hometown. So basically, these people fled their home because they wanted to have their own religion. The government had input new religious practices and they didn't agree with it. And since the government saw that they didn't agree with them, they went as far as to raiding their homes, and they even imprisoned them in order to change their mind and their thoughts. However, the Pilgrims, they had their set beliefs, and because of this, they fled England and they came all the way to America to start a new life and practice their religion freely. Okay, so next we're moving on into laws. There have been other issues that occur as well. As time passed, laws were enforced to help prevent similar issues. This also depends on countries, because this happened in America. We're having these laws in America, but there's also laws enforced in other countries to help with freedom of religion. And the first one I will be discussing is Civil Rights Act of 1962. So this act prohibits the discrimination of a person based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. This law was enacted in July 2nd of the year 1964. Employers cannot refuse to hire or fire a person based on these things. So basically what this is saying, that if we go and look for a job, the employer can't really, it's a whole lot of things like race, color, but mainly we're focusing on religion. The employer can't either hire us based on our religion. That cannot play a part. So everywhere we go, even as people, we should treat each other equally, no matter the religion or anything else. The second one is the First Amendment in the U.S. Constitution. This states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, of abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So this is also basically saying that the government cannot interfere or make laws that affect our religious practices, because that's affecting the person and it's also wrong for the religious causes. Let's say an example can be like in the Bible. It states that they had a law that people could not pray to a god. They had to pray to the king. So that would be an example. The government cannot place laws that restricts us from our religion. The next slide is present issues. Even though laws exist to protect people's rights, issues still arise. Examples of current issues based on religion are as follows. The first one is the workplace. And the workplace, we see this very often. People are always facing difficulties, even though there are laws that prohibit these things, but issues still happen. An example is there are issues with employees preferring workers with the same religion. I've seen it a couple of times where people who have the same religion prefer those workers, and it's just, I guess, an involuntary act, but it still happens even though we try to avoid it. The next one is some employees are harassed by coworkers because of their religious beliefs. This happens more than the first example because coworkers are interacting more with each other, and a lot of people who have a certain belief, let's say for example, let's say I was a Christian and there was Muslims, I would have to respect theirs. But in many cases, whenever there's a majority of one religion, they tend to harass the less people with that religion. And I've seen this happen plenty of times where coworkers are harassed, and sometimes they never speak up, which can also hurt them. The second one is school. As a student, I see this happen. Students are harassed by other students because they are different. As a school, you would think that diversity is is good because there are many students from different places of the world, which helps with communications. It helps, the students communicate with other students more. They interact even though they're from different cultures, and that does happen. However, sometimes there are those students that always prefer to work with their own students with their own culture, with their own religion, or sometimes they harass their classmates. I actually have a friend. She came here. She came to Eastern, and she wasn't harassed, but she wasn't from here, and her religious beliefs were different, so she was treated differently. And this happens on every university. It doesn't only happen here, and it's an everyday thing. The third one, personal life. We as people criticize and judge each other because we do not have the same beliefs. There is ethnocentrism and supremacism in us. In reality, this is very true. Even as people, we tend to criticize and judge without wanting to, even though we know that we shouldn't, just because sometimes we feel like our religion is correct and the others are not. But it is important to see 2 points of the story, not just one, and have an open mind to hear what other people think and what their religion is based on. Alright, continuing. So next we're going to be talking about a few cases that I found that were pretty interesting, and they play a major role in religion and freedom of religion, and there's 2 parts to each story, and at the end I'll have a few questions regarding these cases. So the first case number 1, the Flores case. This happened in 2013. A same-sex couple walked into a flower shop, and the owner refused to provide services to them because it was against her Christian beliefs. This case was taken to court in Washington, and she was sued having to pay fines. Her name was Baronelle Stutzman. The owner of the flower shop continues to fight and plans to take her case to the Supreme Court. So in this case, she doesn't want to sell flowers to them because they're the same-sex couple, and this is against her religion, which she's a Christian. And even when they take the case to court, she is found guilty because she did break that law, and she did discriminate against them based on sex, but also is about religion because it's wrong against the Christian religion. So this is what happened, and she doesn't want to give up. She wants to continue and take this case to Supreme Court. The second case, which is the Marines Religious Freedom case. This happened in 2015. In this case, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces rejected the repeal of former Marine Lance Corporal Monifa Sterling, who was court-martialed in 2015 for expressing her Christian faith while on the job. Monifa would put out Bible verses in the desk after being asked not to by her supervisor. Sterling wants to take her case to the Supreme Court and has her lawyer beside her. So in this case, it's not really, she doesn't own anything, and she's not failing to give services to somebody, but she is disobeying her supervisor. However, according to the law, they should respect that, and it is in the law that they should respect their employees' beliefs. And so she's planning to take this to the Supreme Court, and I haven't heard what's gonna happen yet, but I'm interested in this one. Finally, I have the questions that we have for these cases. The first one, what can we do about ethical issues like in the previous cases? Which side do we take when it comes to decisions like these? What would we do if we were in a situation like that? How do we respond to ethical issues in religion? All these questions are something that we have to ask ourselves, and in reality, we all have different opinions and we all think differently about these because, first of all, our religions might be different, our culture might be different, our background is different, so we would all respond to these questions differently. And it does play part in what we think is ethical correct and ethical incorrect, but it also connects with our religion and our beliefs. Finally, the resources. Here I have some resources where I found most of my information. I hope this presentation was helpful, and thank you very much.